the Friday Championship in its final few weeks with a championship or two hanging in the balance. We visit the Nurburgring in Germany to decide who is going to have a shot at everything in 1 week's time. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Lee, and my co-presenter tonight, John Dalton. Kevin Boss on the cameras. And John, this is not Monday. What are we doing here?
No, it's Friday. This has completely thrown me out. Anyone that's regular to RCI TV, of course, knows Monday is my usual slot, and I should not be here today. But here I am, joining you, Jesse Lee, of course, at the Nurburgring. Always some fantastic racing on show here, improving just a few weeks ago with the Nurburgring is 24 hours, but of course only the GP circuit tonight. No Nordschleife, unfortunately. Bit of a small grid, but I think it's going to be some good battles up and down the field today.
It sure is. You don't need 40 cars to have a good race. We've seen that time and time again. Nürburgring always seems to deliver the action. We're going to expect to see some of that tonight. And right off of the bat, there are early fireworks. Grant Willemont, after signing out from the Dutch round 1 week ago, back in the lineup in that Lamborghini and top of the board. Everyone chasing a 54.590. That's just about as good as they ran in practice prior to this. Nobody in the 54s except Willemont.
Yeah, it's a very tricky circuit tonight, Jesse Lee. Of course, air temperature 35 degrees, track temperature a whopping 44 degrees on the asphalt, so it's going to be very tricky to get those times down even late on in the session. You're not going to have typical, like we normally see, a long-ish run on a set of tires in qualifying. Most drivers, of course, choosing to chop the lap in half and pit in the middle for the split tire strategy in qualifying, or some drivers, of course, as we know, tend to take a fresh set of boots for every single lap they run. But with the temperatures tonight, that could be the strategy on choice as we ride on board here with Kubaki down to the bottom of the hill, into the hairpin, up to the Schumacher S, and we saw the amount of understeer he got in the S-bend sections of turns 5 and 6. The Audi did just not want to turn on those front tires. So an hour on the clock tonight, Jesse. It's going to be very tricky to keep these Pirellis in good shape and alive for the full hour.
The interesting thing about Simon Kubaki for the Santalog sponsored car is they have 0 points in this championship. Didn't score points in the first 3 rounds, didn't show up to Zandvoort, shows up here, and they could be on the front row of the grid. There is a championship afoot amongst several drivers. There's a huge fight for P2 going on in the pro class as well. The silver class is quite interesting, to say the least. We'll bring you the championship standings at the conclusion of qualifying, but Kubaki coming to the line to record this lap. Will it be an improvement? I don't think it will be for the second place Audi driver right about now. Joshua Lation, what a story this driver has been in the silver class. I think they have earned themselves a bump up into pro. It's just been incredible what they've been able to do in this series alone.
Yeah, some drivers, you put them in the silver class in kind of finger quotations, but as the championship goes on, you kind of discover that they're very far from it. And just touching on your championship standings, of course, Joshua Lation heads up the silver standings with a whopping 105 points to his name. Fellow Welshman Reece Wilkinson just behind with 95, and Ryan Daniels, again another Welshman. So a kind of top 3 lockout for the Welsh in GT3 Silver, all in Ferrari 296s as well. But Joshua Lation being the driver that's kind of putting him to the test, and definitely has earned himself a bump up into the pro field, I'd say, Jesse.
Do bear in mind this is the penultimate round of the championship, not the final round. But the reason we bring in the season standings as they stand is because this is the point where you know who you're battling, you know what you've got, you're locked into whatever position battle that you've got going on. Everybody has somebody they're fighting, and we again will show you exactly what we mean. Number 23, Van Zandt, trying to make up a couple of spots, 1 full second down on Grant Willemont's time. Any little bit, actually about 2/10, will get them a position on Jordan Daly, who's currently just inside the top 5. Of course, P4 in class. Van Zandt is P5 in the pro class right now, but would like to bump up a row or 2 and has done exactly that. Daly down, and the 23 up into the top 5.
Yeah, it just seems Ferrari's kind of struggling a little bit today with the likes of the Lamborghini, the Audi, and the Aston just ahead on the first three positions of the grid. Of course, we did have a surprised ACC update in the form of 1.9.3, which of course brought the McLaren Evo into contention. So, of course, any new championship sign-ups, keep your eyes out for those guys picking that car, possibly bringing the McLaren back into the mix. So, another manufacturer that can probably remain competitive with the newer field of machinery. But with the 1.9.3 update, it did bring a slight tweak to the Ferrari 296 at this very track. It did lose 5 kilos of ballast out of its car, but it did get negated by a global top speed nerf. So a little reason why the Ferraris might be struggling today. Of course, you've got the long main straight, Jesse. You've got the giant run out of the Warnsteiner curve all the way down to the Ad Van Bogen and the NGK chicane towards the end of the lap. That's a very long run as well. So top speeds may be suffering slightly for the Ferraris, but the weight has been dropped off. And of course, with these hotter temperatures we see here today, as Martin Lawrence just finishes his lap, no improvement with a P3 still on the cards. Jordan Daly still out in the 197 Baddest Motors sponsored car, of course, normally racing under the Just Gamers banner there. And a fun fact about Jordan Daly, me and him are teaming up for the RCI 4 Hours multi-class, which you two can be a part of, with a reserve list in contention at the moment for GT3. I think there's still one slot available in GT4, so if you do want to get a part of that, head on over to the website racerci.com, snag yourself the last GT4, or of course get yourselves on the GT3 reserve list for any dropouts, as Jordan Daly now navigates the Hyundai curve. To the line he goes, currently in P6. Can he improve at all? And he does, up into P4, top of the Ferraris of the bunch, shoves Van Sander down a position, and Joshua Lation now down into P6, so he's locked with his silver rival right next door to him. And Grant Willamot, one of your last cars to cross the line today, with Stefano Ricciardo just coming up the rear in yet another Ferrari. A little bit off pace, 3 seconds to the good. Can he improve though? Only needs 0.6 to overtake our very own RCI Ted Edwards, and he does, up into P15. And Christopher Streipen now with another lap in the bag. Can he improve from the P9 position? And he does, up into P7, but still a second off the pace. And the Bentley did get a little bit of a power buff on all tracks, minus the BGTA, which is Alton Park. So very surprised to see the Bentley so far down, especially with the added power there. And that is your final qualifying results on your screen. And Grant Willamot taking all 3 sectors, Jesse. That's a rarity in RCI these days.
Yeah, it really is. It's actually come up a few times in this championship, but it is rare to see that overall. Willamont, by the way, we last saw it was a 54.5. They actually bested themselves in the 316 Lamborghini. They did a 54.482 to reaffirm 310s clear of the field. Kubaki in P2, Martin Lawrence, Jordan Daly in 3rd and 4th place. Vandersan, the last car inside the top 5. Lation outqualifies everyone in the silver class. Daniel Durrett, P2 in that class. Wilkinson, P3 in the silver class. Now, that's interesting because those are your main players in the championship battle, as we will see in just a short moment.
Absolutely. So just waiting for Kevin Boss to prepare the results. And here we go on your screens right now. Martin Lawrence heading up the profile with a whopping 107 points. Next closest contender, of course, Grant Willamot with 77. Jordan Daly just 2 points behind with 75. Christopher Streipen with 68. Ted Edwards with 45. Lagalate with 44. Billy Octane with 43. George Kwiatkowski with 39. Van Sander with 18. And Van der Linde with 7, rounding out your top 10 on Friday. And moving on to page 2, of course, Kubaki, who has yet to score a point, although managed to put the Audi R8 on P2 so far, looking to take a small haul of points away to see if he can climb his way up with 2 rounds to go. And everybody else, unfortunately, with a dash against their name, has signed out of the championship in Pro. And here we go now with your silver honors. Joshua Lation with 105 points to his name. Reese Wilkinson with 93 just behind. Ryan Daniels on 79. Daniel Durete on 63. Stefano Ricciardo on 51. Virtus on 27. Racer on 26. Wales on 2. Glenn Offso on 0. And that is all your scoring drivers for silver. Everybody else has signed out, but an absolute Welsh lockout at the front row. So great to see some talent coming from the neighbouring country that I'm from, of course, England and Wales next door. It's good to see the boys making a standpoint here.
Well, I'll tell you this: we've had a German lockout, we've had a English lockout. We have never had a Welsh lockout of the top 3 positions in any category. As far as I know, we've had a Welsh team win an endurance race, an all-Welsh team do that, but never the taking all 3 steps of a podium in any series. And again, one more race to go after today, but it's looking like it is a distinct possibility. Going back to the pro field, Martin Lawrence leads the championship, and it's been just a fantastic season. Their worst finish, their drop round, was Zandvoort, where they finished P2 in the rain 1 week ago. They have taken on all comers. Nobody has really been able to get the absolute best out of them. And the kicker, of course, the driver that beat him in that wet race at Zandvoort 1 week ago was Christoph Verstappen. Verstappen was using a Martin Lawrence setup, John.
The absolute ironicity of that one when you have your own setup used against you. Of course, Martin Lawrence used to be quite famous for picking the Bentley in various guises. I remember casting a championship at some point where he was in an old Bentley, not even the new machinery. So Bentley through and through. Martin Lawrence, although choosing the Aston Martin this time by, and it's great to see, of course, even with the new cars on the grid, Jesse. Of course, the 296, the 992, notably in this championship, that the older kind of manufacturers can still stick it to you. Evo 2. Audi R8 on P2 of the grid, and you've got, of course, a V8 Vantage in P3, a Bentley in P7, kind of splitting everybody up as well, and a Lamborghini at the head of the field, of course, with their new Evo 2 machinery.
Well, one car not on the grid tonight that I hope to see very soon in competition. The new McLaren Evo was announced, has redefined rear wing and rear aero elements to the car, as well as various other tweaks. I cannot wait to see that on the racetrack. Complete surprise to everybody that was coming. Again, not on the grid tonight, but I'm going to get a good eye. I'm probably going to jump in that car sometime over the weekend if it is available. I don't actually know if that update's come out yet, but either way, oh yeah, that's right. It came out yesterday. Yeah, it sure did. I wondered why there wasn't an update today after an announcement like that. It's because it happened yesterday, but I cannot wait to get my hands on that car. Well, back to the championship talk. Martin Lawrence, as dominant as it's been, one bad race here today can completely undo that. Grant Wilmot already scoring points by taking the pole position today. If he scurries away like we should expect him to do, nobody even remotely close to the pace of that Lamborghini today. If he is able to do that, he's going to claw his way right back into this championship. The difference is Martin Lawrence hasn't put a foot wrong. They can afford to have a bad race. Grant Wilmot used their sign out that automatically becomes their drop round. They cannot afford any mistakes. This is a must win.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, isn't it, Jesse, when your worst round, your current drop round, shall we say, on the cards is a P2 finish. So providing you lock yourself in P2 at least, even P3, that would then become, of course, your drop round as well. And then you revert back to the Hall of Points from Zandvoort anyway. So, Martin Lawrence can afford to, play a little bit risky tonight, let's just say. He can afford to maybe switch up and not do the norm of everybody. Of course, the standard 1 hour race tonight on the cards. Time in game is currently 2:06 p.m. Of course, the hottest point in ACC. Temperatures tend to cool off after this hour, and we have a whopping 35 degrees air temperature and 45 degrees down on the tarmac. So the Pirellis are going to be screaming come the end of this 1 hour if you've stayed on the same tyres, of course. We have a 10-minute pit window for drivers to make their way down the lane, and the rule set states only fuel is required with 1 litre to be added. and tires are completely up to the drivers tonight, Jesse. But I feel with the track temperatures in question, of course the air temperatures being very hot as well, I feel a lot of drivers are going to be taking a fresh set of Pirellis come the pit window.
Well, a wet race 1 week ago used to mean that you probably wouldn't take tires. Post 1.9, almost anybody who wanted a shot at winning that race took tires near the end of it, and it was absolute godsend. Anybody who didn't take tires was absolutely stranded and defenseless around Zandvoort, and I think today with the hot temperatures you could see a very similar, although completely opposite situation like you're describing. These tires are going to wear, they're going to give up the good, and it is going to be advantageous for some, I would argue, to take tires. Will the leader do that? I think maybe if you get a big enough gap, I think you have to, if not for defensive purposes. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we go green tonight. Of course, we are experiencing some minor, somewhat significant issues with our broadcast this evening. We decided to go ahead with it because why wouldn't we at least try to give it the old college try? So we do appreciate all of you being here this evening and bearing with us today. This is just a freak incident that we're dealing with our bit rate and all of that. Normal service will be back to normal and resumed during the weekend, but we do appreciate you dealing with it with us. And on top of that, thanks for being here. And if you are here, like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all that stuff, because we're about to go racing. John Dalton.
Yeah, cars 2x2 through the last corner. Of course, the Hyundai Curve as they come back on to the GP section as the drivers now wait for the green. It's typically a long hold. It's very tricky to position yourself right at the Nurburgring. You've got to be careful. You've got to be over enough. And Christoph Verstappen just slightly out of line there has allowed himself up the middle to make it 3 wide down into turn 1, of course. And we've got Martin Lawrence sniffing at the back of the Lamborghini. We've got the Audi to the outside. We are 3 wide, 2 deep into the hairpin, Jesse Lee. Martin Lawrence just not stopping in time nearly. Kubaki going way, way wide. He, of course, didn't stop either. And all the meanwhile, that's allowed Grant Willamot to clear everybody and stretch his legs at the front of the field and jump on that ball, and he's going to take it to the checkout.
Contact, car spinning out. We're in the Mercedes-Benz arena. The Ferrari goes spinning around and gets a little bit of a strap in there, and Martin Lawrence also involved going wide. They're going to lose a little bit of ground there as well as everybody else scampers away. One other Ferrari there off of the racetrack ever so slightly. Verstappen immediately right back on the attack, trying to clear some of the other cars, trying to clear Martin Lawrence, and has done. Martin Lawrence going backwards, an absolute nightmare of a start there as they were 3 wide, 2 rows deep on the initial start, and then contact led to all of that. I have no idea who tipped that car around, but rather beside, it's happened now, and somebody is going to be very frustrated with how that worked out, and do probably ignore the time. There it is. The timing and scoring has reset itself. Grant Willamot out in front. Jordan Daly has made it up to P2.
Jordan Daly's just scampered through the kind of chaos that happened ahead of him. He's just picked the right side of the track essentially and filed his way through as Kubaki comes under fire a little bit there from Billy Octane through the latter half of the lap. He's going slightly backwards in the Porsche. That's caught him into the clutches of Van Sander, and it's Ibiza Racer and Van der Linde, the 2 Ferraris who got turned in the Mercedes arena. We're going to have to see if we caught a replay of that one. Martin Lawrence, like you said, Jesse, absolutely hell of a start. He's gone all the way down from P3 to P8 in what is under a 2-minute lap essentially, so he's got a lot of clawing back to do, and ahead of him he's got the very big Bentley blocking his view of the circuit. It's not a pleasant car to follow by any means. It's very, very tricky to try and work around, of course, with the size of it. It tends to kind of cut off the apex, the blind spots. It's very tricky to see where you can make a move and make a move stick, as Ricciardo picks up the fastest lap on the first lap of the race. Of course, that probably won't be there come the end of the hour, but all in all, a little bit of a tussly start, but not the worst I've seen from the Nürburgring, I'll be honest, especially when they're going 3 wide, 2 deep into turn 1.
Right, you are. I mean, when Van der Linde went around, you immediately start to think, okay, this is going to be a big pileup, especially with how far up the field there were. One other car, I think that was Racer actually, in the 808, couldn't get around them, so they just hit the brakes and they completely stopped, and everybody else streamed past. And that is the smart and self-preservation thing to do, but it's not the most advantageous thing to do for your position. But nonetheless, it helped keep the incident from being worse than it otherwise might have done. Billy Octane up a bunch of spots. Daly up a bunch of spots into P2. Was about half a second off of the leader Willamont, and now is 6.5 tenths off of Willamont now as Grant starts to unwind that Lamborghini at the front. Kubaki 2.1 behind the lead 2 cars. Billy Octane right behind Kubaki for P3. Ted Edwards, who did not qualify particularly well, I think they may have stayed out of the incident, and now they're in attack mode.
Yeah, I think Ted's very heads-up driving, you know, just stayed out of it, swayed around it, found a way through the pack, and now he's got a little bit of a gap between himself and Ricciardo to kind of focus on and try and make some progress with. But the Porsches are going to be struggling in these temperatures. Give it another 10 or 15 minutes or so when the tyres have got up to temperatures. The little slipstream battle gets on now. Billy Octane finds his way past Kubaki. Not sure what happened there. Down into turn 1, Billy Octane on the inside. Meanwhile, Yves Van Zander behind in the 23, waiting for a moment to pounce in the Ferrari. 2x2 they go into the Mercedes arena. This is a very easy kind of corner to go too wide in, but it's very tricky to do it safely, and both drivers respecting each other and giving just enough room there. And Kubaki finds his way back up a position into P3. Billy Octane down into P4, and Van Zander meanwhile in P5, just kind of sitting there spectating, waiting for the right moment to pounce. And Martin Lawrence has found his way past that Bentley and past Joshua Lasham somewhere in Sector 1.
Yeah, something's happened to Verstappen. Verstappen, the big blue Bentley in the background, hard to miss it. It takes up half the screen. They have lost a couple of spots. I don't know if that was contact. That'd be very strange if Lawrence and Verstappen made contact with each other. Something else may have went wrong in the Verstappen 747 car, the RCI esports car, to make that gap occur. Lation back through. They'll take that position. That's a little extra padding. Back to Daniel Durrett. Wilkinson, by the way, up to P3 and right behind Durrett for P2 in the silver class. Everything kicking off here. Billy Octane, who I was mentioning earlier, was right behind Kubaki, almost got around him, probably did get around him, and then going the long way, did Kubaki be able to get back around at the inside? Of course, the outside becomes the inside in the Mercedes-Benz arena, and able to get that spot back, P3 back to Kubaki.
Yeah, of course, the switchback nature of the Nurburgring is always one thing that catches a lot of drivers out. You know, you think you've got the move done and dusted in one corner, and then before you know it, you're still side by side going into the next, and you're now on the wrong side of the road. So very tricky to try and mount an attack and, of course, put up a defense as well. You've got to be really careful and smart on where you stick your car and where you plan your moves. And Jordan Daly looking to the back of Grant Willamot there into turn 1, although sensible driving, no way to find the around the Lamborghini, the 316 there at the front of the field. Brian Daniels in the silver class. This is in P4 at the moment. He's got George Kwiatkowski between himself and fellow Welshman Reece Wilkinson in the 6th, just ahead as well. And of course the pro and silver cars, in case you're your first time watching ACC here on RCI TV and you're wondering what the hell is going on here, anybody represented with a white number board is what we call a pro class. So these guys are the fastest of the pre-qualifiers and have done so they've qualified in the top bracket essentially of the race. And a little wiggle there, I think, from Kwiatkowski ahead, although Ryan Daniels no answer to that one on the fellow Scotsman. Anybody with a grey number board is, of course, what we define as a silver driver, although some of them, in the case of course, Joshua Lation, are far from it, and Ted Edwards now getting a little bit argy-bargy on the back of Ricciardo, and that's brought Van der Linde's Ferrari back into contention as well, of course, with the lap 1 incident in the Mercedes arena. Van der Linde's going to want to be getting some positions up, and a little bit of dust kicked up ahead from the two Ferraris battling as they come to the top of the hill into the Bilstein Curve, just ahead of this next corner. corner here. Of course, going back to my point that I was making about the pro and the silver field, pro and silver drivers can fight amongst themselves. There's no reason to move over, get out of the way of a pro car, as we see here. Ted Edwards being the pro car, Ricciardo being the silver car ahead. They are fighting very fairly. Of course, it's wise in GT racing to choose your fights, should we say, Jesse? As we see Van der Linde there with a rallycross line through the Vidal chicane he goes, and just about managed to hold on to that Ferrari, although lost a ton of ground to the back of Ted Edwards, so he's going to have to do that all again in the next lap. But these guys, of course, can fairly fight amongst themselves. There's no reason for one to give up the place, but GT racing, you do have to choose your battles, Jesse. You can choose to give up the spot if you feel it's affecting you, if you feel the guy behind you is much faster. As you see Ted taking a fight to the bollard in turn 1, and a little bit of a bounce as he came out of turn 1, so couldn't use the traction of that Porsche to drive alongside the 296 Ferrari ahead of him. So Ted's still got that battle on his hand. But it's one of those things. It's sensible to choose your fights in GT racing. If you think the guy behind you is much faster, work together with him, let him through, let him tow you to the back of the next car, and see what you can do together, rather than being the stubborn driver that parks it on the apex and refuses to give up the spot.
Yeah, you got to be patient on both accounts, in my opinion, John, because if you're a pro car like Ted Edwards and you have a little bit more speed, obviously Ted's not falling off the back of Ricciardo. Ricciardo is sort of battling Daniels as well, and you've got to be aware of what's going on. And if you're in that position, you maybe didn't have the qualifying you were looking to have, then that sort of changes your mental approach, in my opinion. And now with Van der Linde as well on the back of Ted Edwards, that's the same thing. You've got to have presence and awareness of what's going on. Ted's been very careful with Ricciardo, doesn't want to influence that fight or that battle. The first opportunity he gets, though, he's absolutely going to take it. Ricciardo's got to know that as well. If he gives up position or inside of any of these turns, he's probably going to have, and that's exactly what going down into turn number 1 was all about. That's what Ted was trying to do. They were trying to turn and cut a little bit harder than Ricciardo was able to do to get a little bit better launch off, maybe get them as they enter the arena. That did not happen. Obviously, the car was bouncing. Speaking of cars bouncing, by the way, we saw Van der Linde and Ted Edwards bounce off curbs. I'm going to tell you something, folks. A month and a half ago, that had been 2 wrecked race cars. 1.9, that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, 1.9. We keep saying it, don't we, on RCI TV? It is the kind of revolutionary update that's really shaken up ACC physics in general, both in tires and suspension and even aero. As a double move there for Ricciardo, nearly losing 2 positions. Not sure if he can mount the comeback on the switchback nature. He can't. Van der Linde up another position, and Ted Edwards also up into P13 now. So Ted Edwards P13, that makes Van der Linde, of course, P14, and Ricciardo slips down to P15. But just goes to prove, of course, one driver shuffles you out of position, and before you know it, another driver's taken advantage of your open door as well. So big loss there for Ricciardo, although of course for the silver classes we see a race replay on your screen here. This is of the incident, I believe, lap 1. It's Yves van der Sande gets run into the back of. He spun himself, Jesse. Yeah, we thought it was the other way round. Of course, when you see a car spun, it's always because somebody's gone into the back of you. It's rarely ever because you've gone into the back of someone else. So yeah, very detrimental there on lap 1.
Excellently caught by Kevin Boss, our cameraman and broadcast producer tonight. And yeah, I thought definitely, normally when you see that happen coming into the arena section, it's people fighting for space, but that's not what that was at all. Had a little bit too much wheel in it, got into the back of the other car. That de-wedges or compresses the front of the car, takes the weight off of the rear a little bit, tires light up, and you're going around. And that's exactly what happened on that occasion. Chris Van der Linde trying their best to get around Ted Edwards, who we saw open the door, part the seas a little bit with Ricciardo down to 15th. They won't care so much, really, as long as Ted Edwards and Van der Linde continue to gain on Daniels and maybe drags them back just a little bit. They will care that racer right behind them that is for position in class. So all of that is tentative at the moment. Nobody coming in to do the early pit stop. And look at this, Van der Linde looking to the inside of turn 1 on Ted Edwards. gets in there, has just enough brake in it to not cause an incident, thinks better of it, and backs off, loses quite a bit of time. Martin Lawrence on the comeback tour dropped several positions down the field on that start, back up to P6 for the moment.
Race replay here of that said start. 3 wide, it's too deep into even in the background there, and just shoehorning out for Willamette on Kubaki, and I think Lawrence braked on his usual point, forgot of course the colder brakes, the heavier fuel load, and the tires not slightly up to enough temperature on the surface, and ran himself a little bit too deep, and that kind of caused a little bit of a concertina effect for everybody behind, checking up to try and avoid Lawrence as well. And where's this man come from, Jesse Lee? Kubaki around the outside at the top of the hill, up the inside, he gets into the Bilstein curve, and Jordan Daly down into P3, but I don't think this fight's off yet. Daly tucked right under the wing of that Audi R8, up into the Vidal chicane they go, through the Advan Bogan. A great run, of course, the Ferrari with a top speed nerf slightly at all circuits, although lost 5 kilos at the Nurburgring in 1.9.3, and Kubaki sealed it, I think, through the Vidal chicane. Great gap pulled out into the Hyundai curve, and a little wiggle. This is going to allow Daly back into turn 1 for sure, Jesse.
Jordan Daly going down to the inside. That was a huge slide into the Coca-Cola curve from the Audi. The Audi just somehow has a little bit extra legs even with that, but it doesn't matter. Daly down the inside. He's going to forfeit it. Look, he's going to give it back up. Kubaki's going to go back to P2, and that's incredible when you consider not 10 minutes ago, Billy Octane was fighting Kubaki for P3, and there was more than a 2.5 second gap between them and Jordan Daly. Kubaki is coming. The question is, how much more speed does that 966 have? Can they erase another 2.5 second gap to go catch Willamette now?
Yeah, he's got Willamette just up the road, of course, in the Lamborghini Evo 2. Very different platform, the Evo 2 to, of course, the R8 Evo 2 as well. Both Evo 2 cars are the latest generation of both machines, and it was a kind of rumor in the early days of GT racing that the Huracan was basically an R8, but with the Evo iterations, that has changed a lot in recent days. And I think Kevin Boss has got a replay queued up for us, Jesse. Here we go. Let's have a look on this one. Billy Octane down into turn 1. He's got Van Sander behind him, and a little bump maybe on that one. It did seem Billy did jump ahead, and Van Sander did back out, and that's of course put him into the clutches of Martin Lawrence. And look in the background there, Martin Lawrence is through. Van Sander down to P10, Jesse. Not sure what's happened here.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what's happened to Van Sander, but they have lost several positions. All the other cars up. Hard to tell exactly unless we see video confirmation that there was contact. That could have been a just as simple as driving off the racetrack one way or another. Speaking of driving off the racetrack, Ted Edwards is going to go wide. Was there contact? I don't know. But here's Vanderlinde trying to continue to make that move on Ted Edwards for the second or third time. It is not going to work. Here comes Ricciardo. Ricciardo thinking about it, looking up the inside. Can't quite do it. He backs off there, giving Vanderlinde a little bit of space. Now that was very close stuff and a very heads-up and smart move by Ricciardo, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ricciardo not going to gain anything out of this fight. Of course, two different class drivers, silver and pro, as we watch a race replay here as he comes up to the top of the hill. A little rub maybe sent Ted Edwards sideways, and a flash of the lights from Vanderlinde maybe to say sorry on that one. Didn't mean to touch you, and all is fair. Of course, Vanderlinde backed right out of it and lost a lot of ground on the Porsche, but that Ferrari of Vanderlinde definitely has got some pace in it tonight, Jesse. You know, even though we've seen Jordan Daly struggling to turn 1 with the Audi, I think Ferrari on Porsche, Ferrari looks to be the better car.
You know what else looks to be good? AK Esports. You know, if you want to host professional level esports events just like we do here at RCI TV, well, you're going to need AK Esports. For more on how they can help you with your esports events, akesports.it.
Yeah, of course, one of our many partners here at RCI TV, and we're thankful to, of course, every single one of them for supporting us on our journey. And alongside AK Esports, of course, driver61.com, where we do offer 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code. find a link in the description below and head on over to driver61.com. Of course, from full-on one-to-one coaching and full driver courses, the guys at driver61.com, are able to unlock some unknown potential within you. And here we go, side by side, little bit of a contact coming up the hill to the chicane. Daly's not going to be happy about that, but Kibaki, there you see a flash of the lights from Daly. You can see he's very frustrated with how that
What are you playing
down.
at? That's what Daly was saying.
He's definitely shouting through his helmet at the windscreen of the Ferrari there to see what Kibaki was playing out there. That could have ended very badly for both drivers, especially with the weird crash physics sometimes, of course, ACC displays. And alongside driver61.com, of course, Fanatec, who need no introduction if you're looking to pick up some high-end hardware this season. Of course, RCI do have an affiliate link with Fanatec. It doesn't cost you a single penny, but it does help us here with some of the running costs we do incur at RCI. And two new partners for this year, of course, digitalmotorsports.com, offering a number of products and services from virtual driving experiences, corporate events, an early drive program in conjunction with BMW at Mondelo Park, esports championships, driver training, simulator components, and even complete sim rig solutions. They can, of course, maybe help you out on your sim racing venture, as Ryan Daniels up the inside. I think that's Van Sander there, just giving up the position entirely, not even wanting to fight that one on that one. It could be Kiyakowski, actually. Kevin Boss, it is, I believe, Kiyakowski in that one. Going back down the field on him, so Ryan Daniels, up into P11, Kiyakowski down into P12 on that one, and Chris van der Linde and, of course, Ted Edwards still locking horns. This fight still isn't done yet. And our last partner, of course, here at RCI is Go Setups, formed to be, of course, one of the premium esports setup stores for all reasons in ACC. Whether you're esports ready, as we see Ted Edwards slide out of the hairpin, maybe he needs a Go Setups on that Porsche. Maybe that might not have happened otherwise. We do have a plethora of course, esports stars on their roster, from everything from esports ready setups to the slightly safer variants. Every kind of car has its use, and I say it every time I say this, Jesse, they even have a Jaguar pack. Like, what setup store has a Jaguar pack?
I know, and I'm again, every time you say that, I have to say this. Event managers of RCI, I know we're the broadcast department, I know you guys do your own thing. Hear us out on this one. Jaguar only championship. Jaguar Cup. Please.
I would love to see that. I would say, like, of all the RCI event managers, I would say that's up Tim Ireland's neck of the woods, definitely. That sounds like a Tim Ireland idea.
Tim Ireland brings the thunder with a lot of his inventions of series, including the BMW Academy that we got coming up starting this Monday.
Yeah, say BMW Academy, another one of Tim Ireland's cooked up championship, shall we say. If you're wondering what is going on, of course, BMW are not affiliated with this. No, you will not get a real-life drive with BMW as the note state in the championship. As Chris van der Linde has found his way past Ted Edwards down into turn one, he goes massive send on the Porsche, and Ted even turns away from the apex.
Go in there.
He did not want to back out of that move that time. I think he spent enough time behind Ted Edwards. And first of the stewards, penalties coming through. Durete with a drive-through, Jesse. Going to have to find out what's happened there, whether it's track limits or stewards on that one. But back to the BMW Academy, of course. We do have 2 rounds of the M2, 2 rounds of the M4 GT4, and another 2 rounds of the M4 GT3. Sign-ups, of course, still open, as Jesse said. Season begins May 29th, and pre-qualifying is not required, on this one. So it's a very easy sign-up for those of you that do want to take part. Head on over to racerci.com, and I think that was Ryan Daniels, maybe, we saw sliding out of the hairpin at the bottom of the hill.
I don't know if there was contact there. I don't know if he was spooked a little bit about van der Linde, but one way or another, Daniels got in there. Look at this. It's a huge slide out of the... Was that almost orchestrated? I don't know. Octane looked like he went wide, whether that was on purpose or not, and somehow Martin Lawrence knew to go to the inside. Either he knew, he spotted it from corner entry. You can do that as a racing driver. You can't assume that... if the closing speed is wrong, you kind of assume they're going to go for one. Definitely going wide, and that will swap the positions. Martin Lawrence back up to P4 on a day that is quickly turned into damage control, and he's done a really good job of it so far. Meanwhile, this fight still not over with. This was the contact earlier. Jordan Daly getting shunted there a little bit, and Kubacki there able to hang on to that spot and has now put just a little bit of a gap, and I mean that, just a little bit of a gap back on Jordan Daly. Daly flashing the lights, was not pleased at all. This battle, I don't know if Billy Octane let that go on purpose or not. He's not falling off the back of Martin Lawrence at all.
Yeah, I mean, if my experience with the Porsche is anything to go by, the rear tyres tend to start giving up on that car. Around about the 20-25 minute mark as Daly up the Schumacher S's there with a little bit of a wiggle, trying to chase down the back of Kubacki, still just ahead of him in the 966. Nothing to be had yet for the Baddest Motors 197, but the Porsche tyres on the rear do tend to drop off after about 20 minutes or so, and even in these hot conditions, 35 degrees air temperature, 45 degrees on the track. It's a very, very hot one here at the Nurburgring, and even in the cooler temperatures, the Porsche struggles, so it's going to be absolutely horrific here, I think, for the two Porsches in the field of Billy Octane and Ted Edwards.
I think Germans melt at 45 degrees C, don't they? I don't think it gets that hot here, especially this part of Germany. Then again, I have been wrong before, and I'm likely wrong here as well, but this is hot even for me, folks.
Yeah, I think this is a very hot European summer. I mean, highs of like 30 normally, in the 30s somewhere on a very hot day, especially in England. So I can't imagine Germany is too far off that one. So, you know, that's the glorious thing about ACC. You know, you have kind of, you know, perfect conditions to set up absolutely anything. You know, you can have a stupidly hot race, you can have a stupidly cold race, you could, you know, minimize and maximize every single adjustment on the car to really find out what works. And that's the glorious thing about sim racing, of course, versus the real world. There's a lot less penalties incurred, and Chris van der Linde still making moves on Kwiatkowski, almost a mirror move of what we saw earlier with Ted Edwards, sent up the inside into turn one. Kwiatkowski turned away from the corner to give him the position, although Kwiatkowski on the switchback nature has the inside line in the Mercedes arena. Chris van der Linde is going to have to go the long way around the outside and switching back to the final section of the AMG arena. He manages it, and Ted Edwards even trying to get in on the fight.
Ted Edwards looking down to the inside here. He's going to have position. No, thinks so better of it. Doesn't get in there. Van der Linde takes the inside position of the corner and covers him off. By the way, I just looked it up. This is 10 degrees hotter. The track temp is 10 degrees hotter than it's ever been here. The ambient temperature is as hot as it's ever been here in the middle of the summer. Ted Edwards looks down to the inside of the Dunlop hairpin, nearly has his nose cut off, nearly couldn't get stopped in time. A huge wiggle and maybe an exhale of desperation as he gets away with it there. And everybody continues on. A couple of moments, a scary lap for those two racing hard for position.
Yeah, very tricky indeed there. Ted just about managed to draw the Porsche up in time on the back of Kwiatkowski there. That could have ended very badly indeed for both drivers. Pit window, Jesse Lee, is open for the next 9.5 minutes, just over. 10-minute pit window as standard. 1 litre of fuel required to make your mandatory pit stop complete, and tyres are completely up to the drivers. But as we were just discussing with the temperatures, we think a lot of drivers are going to be taking a fresh set of boots tonight. We'll keep an eye on the pit stop timer to see what happens on that one. Van Sander up the inside now of Reese Wilkinson. This is, of course, a pro and a silver car, so no real position change as such. Of course, Van Sander just goes up a position in the standings overall to P8. And Ted Edwards now to the inside on turn one. Kwiatkowski turns away from the corner, turns in a little bit tighter to try and get the drive off the corner, but I think Ted Edwards has done just about enough on the Ferrari. Kwiatkowski down to P12, Ted Edwards up to P11, and that is a change for position in class. So championship points all swapped around there.
Yeah, it sure is. Kwiatkowski didn't really fight him too hard going down into turn number one. Didn't even really get up on the wheel as they entered the arena section of the racetrack. Probably didn't even realize Ted Edwards went as wide as he did. No harm, no foul there or anything. It's just Kwiatkowski could have potentially, had they kept that gap a little bit closer, They could have probably argued that position, but did not do that. And again, I think they might just be content not to be involved in an accident, considering how this race started for some of the competitors. Grant Wilmot leads by more than 4 seconds out in front. Kubaki has the quickest lap of the race in that Audi in second place. Jordan Daly falling off the back of Kubaki by a second, 1.5 seconds. Well, it's the battle of the Belgians here, Verstappen and Van Sant. And by the way, Verstappen, if you get mad at me, just so you know, Kevin Boss told me to say that. But Van Sant trying to make this pass on Verstappen. Verstappen had a pretty decent start to the race, got up several spots, has given a lot of them back, and doesn't want to give up 7th.
Yeah, Verstappen clawing on there with the bad run through the Vidal chicane for Van Sant. He's going to have to do all of that again in a lap, and Reece Wilkinson is just behind him as well. And those of you eagle-eyed viewers looking down to the timing board on the left-hand side of your screens, why does Ryan Daniels have a green mark next to his name now? That does indicate, of course, that the mandatory pit stop requirements have been met. He's pit within the pit window. He's added some fuel into the car. He's got on his way again. He's come out the pit lane very safely indeed, and that was a 48.5 second stop. So I'm going to put my bets on Daniels not taking tyres, Jesse Lee.
No.
I think if we have a tyre stop, it's going to be up into the 1 minute mark. So we're going to have to keep an eye on some pit timers as Racer comes down the pit lane as well to make his mandatory stop. And just under 7 minutes on the timer. So still a few more laps yet before we'll probably see the top guys come down the lane. They always tend to stretch the window right to the end, the top guys in pit window scenarios.
Yeah, one thing about 1.9 that changed is people were messing around with strategies. Van Sant has lost it themselves into the hairpin, and that's going to allow one car through. And not for position, it doesn't matter, but a scary moment for Van Sant. If there's one car out there that could use new boots, strap 4 new Pirelli P0s onto the 23 Ferrari. I think right about now, that was a scary moment that gets your attention. But you're talking about the pit window, and I like what Daniels did. They came in just a little bit early. You never want to be you never want to be late to the party. If your strategy is to go long, that's fine. But if you're going to come in, you want to be among the first to come in to get the full use out of those tires. I think that was a well-timed pit stop from Daniels to be the only one getting in and off of pit road there. They may benefit from this in a few short moments as Van Sant is inventing new lines, and they have decided enough is enough. It's time to come in.
Yeah, I more than likely would have done the same as well. And be very careful on your pit entries and pit exits with the limiter, because it has caught Ibiza Racer out already with a stop-go 30 to his name. We can only assume that is for speeding in the pit lane. Stewart looking relatively calm in the box next to us tonight. Of course, Head Stewart tonight reporting Tom Bryan. A lot of racing incidents on lap 6s, lap 7s, lap 8s, lap 9s, but nothing major to report on that one. Other than the lap 1 turn 3 incident involving the 527 and the 23, no further action. Of course, the 527 causes contact with the 23, taking themselves out, of course, on that one. We did see a replay from Kevin Boss. And speaking of taking out, Daniel Durete here into the Bilstein curve. Let's have a look what happened here. Up through the Schumacher S's, looking absolutely fine indeed, being very cautious on the curb usage.
Where's the crash?
Coming to the top of the hill, it's in this next corner, Jesse. I'm going to say he took too much outside curb, gassed it a little bit too hard, and round he goes to driver's left into the wall, and a big impact on the front of that Evo 2 Lamborghini.
Well, that's the second time we've seen a Lamborghini and 2 different Lamborghinis do that before we went live this evening in practice. We saw Grant Wilmot pushing for time and did the same exact thing. Luckily for Wilmot, that was only in practice. It did not matter. But for Daniel Durette, that is a huge frontal impact. That's more than a minute or so of damage. And I dare say it, 4th place in the championship. That is the Canadians' championship hopes over and done with.
Yeah, I'd say that's the kind of nail in the coffin, should we say, on that one. A lot of drivers now beginning to make their stop. Both Porsches, Billy Octane and Ted Edwards have accomplished theirs. Reece Wilkinson first on the road at the moment with their pit stop as well. So just looking down the pit timers, Reece Wilkinson, no tyres for him. Yves Van Sander, I think he's fixed maybe a bit of damage with a 57-second stop. 1 minute 15 for Billy Octane. That's definitely tyres on that. Ryan Daniels, 48.5 seconds. Van der Linde with a minute and 14 on the clock. Ted Edwards also with 1:14 on the clock. Ricciardo with 1:18 on the clock, so maybe just about missed his pit box, had to shuffle about, or possibly a little bit of damage on that Ferrari as well. So we've got a bit of a mix in the field at the moment. Jesse Lee, of course, just under the halfway point now. So we've got these new tyre cars versus these old tyre cars, and I think I'm going to be putting my money on these new tyre cars. So keep your eye on the list of people. Billy Octane, Van der Linde, Ted Edwards and Ricciardo, your 4 drivers on new boots at the moment.
Right now, it's pretty interesting. I know Joshua Leishman has not come in to do their mandatory pit stop, but the top 3 running order in that silver class right now mimics the way they run in the championship, which is good news if you're Leishman. It's bad news if you're anybody else. Daniels did gain quite a bit by not taking tires. We're both of the mind that that's what Daniels did. They came in, they ran a 48-second stop. They probably, almost assuredly, did not take tires. Now the question is, they've made that strategy call. They've got track position out of it, John Dalton. Will they get to keep it, though, with 27 minutes to go? That's a long old way.
Yeah, 27 minutes, you know, anything can happen in those 27 minutes, should we say. Ryan Daniels, of course, coming under pressure from Jordan Daly now just behind him. This is essentially, this is going to be for about P8, P9, Jesse, I think, on this 7. So Ryan Daniels, of course, P9. That makes no sense in the running order. And I think there's a sector beam just down the bottom of the hill here, so we should start seeing some drivers shuffling about when we do. There we go, Daly down into P10 here. So he's got a lot of ground to gain. Of course, a lot of cars ahead of him have pitted already, in a flash of the lights as he comes out the hairpin up to the Schumacher S's, wants to get rid of Ryan Daniels in the 66. And of course, Daniels is no obligation to move out the way for the car behind. He's willing to battle him in the silver car, and it's great to see when we do see a stubborn silver driver, should we say, refusing to give way to a pro. It does make some very interesting fights. It kind of flummoxes almost the pro car into thinking, you know, this is not normal. Normally they give up by now. Why is he still parking it on the apex? And a little slither of a line on the inside there allows Jordan Daly through. Probably a lift from Ryan Daniels as they went side by side up towards the Vidal chicane through the Ad Van Bogen, and yeah, some very smart driving probably from Ryan Daniels to give up that fight, because Jordan Daly, he's going to be fired up after that contact earlier with Kubaki.
Yeah, he's going to be fired up. He's also going to be wondering how Daniels was in front of him in the first place. Surely he would have figured out that he didn't take tires, and every second spent behind a car that, A, you were in front of before your pit stop and you know didn't take tires, and you probably did. That frustrates you more, but well done and well handled by Daniels there, realizing that wasn't his fight. He'll likely have a fight at some point later on in this race that is more meaningful. Gave up as little time as possible right there at the end of the back straight, and able to get that dispatched of and taken care of. Speaking of taking care of, everybody has taken care of their required pit stop this evening. Wilmot back out in front of the field. Martin Lawrence, it appears, unless I'm being fooled, is in P2. They have gained all the spots and more back from the start of the race. The 171, I'd be very curious to hear if the Connection Lost racing car took tires or not. I don't think they did. I
was preparing this for my next segment, Jesse Lee. Absolutely not on your top 6, it looks like, on the timers. Haven't taken any tires. So that
really?
Grant Wilmot, Martin Lawrence, Joshua Leishman, Verstappen, Wilkinson and Van Sander, all under a minute on the pit stop. Kubaki with 1:18 on the clock took tires. Billy Octane, we knew, took tires anyway. Jordan Daly with a 1:19 stop, so very long stop for the Baddest Motors 197. And then we've got Ryan Daniels on a 48, Chris Van der Linde we know, Ted Edwards we know.
Easy boys.
Contact with Kubaki and Van Sander there, so Stewart's going to have to wake up next door. Wakey boys, it's time to look into an incident here in the Vidal chicane, and Kubaki just seems to drive on, so I'm waiting for a very big penalty to come through on that.
I don't think there will be one, John.
It's hard to say.
It is hard to say, but I'm going to reckon that Kubaki was put into that situation, and I think you'll see the car on the inside overran the corner a little bit. Look at Van Zandt here. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Van Zandt overran the inside of the corner squeezed Kubaki a little bit, did not give room, and that's what invited the contact. Now, I could be wrong. I'm not a steward today.
That's why we're this side of the box, I think, Jesse.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. I can sit here and be wrong.
Exactly, and I can be too. So we'll have to see what happens on that one. We'll keep our eye in the stewards reporting board to see if anything does raise its head in the next 20 minutes or so, and I'm sure it will. Of course, stewards with many more angles to look at things rather than we do here. We just kind of pull up a replay, watch it live, and make a judgment. They, of course, will look at onboard steering inputs, throttle, brakes, etc., to see who did what to who on that one. And Jordan Daly is now fighting Billy Octane, of course, two drivers both on fresh sets of tyres, so this one isn't going to be as easy to dispatch of, although Daly with some great pace in the Ferrari up the Schumacher S, pushing the limits, Jesse, on that inside green curb, nearly dropped the car into the gravel, and it's quite a severe drop off the green AstroTurf into the sand at the top of the hill.
Yeah, we use a term here in America called digging off the corner, meaning that you're trying to grip, you're trying to get everything, you're maximizing the turns. Daly knows that he's in a little bit of a hole. At some point, these drivers that did take tires are going to realize that how many cars didn't. They'll be a little bit shocked by that. I kind of expected a mixed bag. I expected it to be slightly more mixed than it actually was. Ended up being about a 50-50 split. A lot of the top drivers who I thought would take tires in defense did no such thing. Wilkinson, by the way, would have been hoping and thinking that they had the keen strategy to not take the tires. They did not probably expect Lation to do the exact same thing, and that was a net, well, neutral, nothing between those two cars, though they are up several places in the overall running order. Could this be, of course, Verstappen bearing down on Lation, could this be another overall podium for our silver driver who is leading that championship? That'd be incredible.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff indeed. And just looking down the last lap times on the boards of the cars with, you know, fresh tires versus no tires. Your race leader last time by the flag was a 156.9. The next car in the queue, let's say, on fresh tyres, of course, was Kubaki with a 156.2, although the little bit of contact in the chicane probably slowed him up a little bit. So we'll take Billy Octane's reference lap of a 156.4. So the margins are very small in new tyres versus old tyres at the moment, Jesse. Although just over 20 minutes to go, these Pirellis could fall off a cliff quite severely for the drivers that, of course, have reused them.
Well, the final 20 minutes of the race, Wilmot leading quite happily and with a decent-sized gap. It is coming down, though. Martin Lawrence, that was 6.3, 6.1 the gap, first to second place. It's 5.6 seconds now as Martin Lawrence is gaining ground, and if he continues to gain at this rate, he will catch him just about near the end of this race, but he's going to have to keep this sustained for the entire length of the 20 minutes. That is going to be hard to do on older tires. Of course, Lation not really involved in that fight, but outpacing his nearest rival, not only in the race, but in the championship to the tune of some 8.5, 9 seconds. And of course, they have Verstappen in between the two of them. Verstappen has not really made up a lot of ground on Lation for the overall third position for the time being. So just let you know, those two cars, the 97 and the 747, quite relative indeed. Jordan Daly still not able to get around Billy Octane. These two drivers might be in communication with each other tonight, and why I bring that up is they are not necessarily doing the old switcheroo. They're not doing multi-21. They're actually racing each other.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? People actually do race each other in this day and age. Nobody kind of gives up the position willingly. Sometimes we see, you know, a lot in endurance racing when you've got the longer hours. You know, you've got 6 hours on the clock. You've got plenty of time to claw back any of the gain of the loss of a teammate maybe that's made that's not quite as fast in your lineup. So, you know, it's very wise to pick your battles, and these guys seem to be working together. Of course, Octane and Daly running very similar lap times in retrospect. Both cars on new tires, so you know they're not going to be holding each other up at all. And last time by Billy Octane, 156.132, and Jordan Daly with a 156.147. So, you know, they're nearly 1-to-1 on pace. They're going to be, you know, racing very sensibly indeed to try and work together. Of course, they've got to dispatch of Wilkinson when they catch him, the number 6 Ferrari ahead, before they even get onto the back of Verstappen in the Bentley, who will, of course, be the next car in queue for the championship points, all shall we say, on that one. And just look on the circuit map on the right-hand side, of course, you can see how spread out all the drivers are. We've got, you know, represented by the numbers that their cars run, the leader represented by a triangle. And of course, the leader is stretching his legs away from the field, Jesse. 5.5 seconds to the good on Martin Lawrence, and then a massive gap between them and Lation just behind. Verstappen not too far behind them with 1.3 seconds to the good, and then another big gap. So we kind of got clusters of cars together, and, you know, everything's kind of spreading out a little bit, although, you know, it's a little bit of a quiet phase of the race. Give it 10 minutes or so, I think these drivers will realize their time is up, and they will want to start making moves on each other and start getting those all-important championship points on the board.
Well, as we get closer to the end of the race, as we get closer to the end of the championship as well, your tempers start to come out, especially today. If you had a not so great race, maybe you've executed your plan and you're just a little bit out of position from where you normally would think you were going to be. All that starts to compile and starts to compress, and you get a little bit frustrated. You start making moves that aren't exactly on, and all of a sudden the red mist and the blinders kick on, and all you can see is what is in front of you exactly. And for Jordan Daly, he needs to get some of these spots back. He needs to get some more points here. Otherwise, we talked about it earlier about removing oneself from the championship conversation, like Durrett, who had that massive crash we saw earlier. Jordan Daly hasn't had a massive crash, but if he doesn't get some of these points back, this might be championship done for him. Keep in mind, he's P3 in the pro field.
Yeah, he's going to have to dispatch of Billy Octane fairly sharpish, and the gap's still relatively the same between these two drivers. If anything, I think Daly may have dropped back a little bit. I'm not sure if it's just these fantastic camera angles we're seeing from the rear wings and the front splitters of these cars as they head up into the Vidal chicane. It proves how bumpy this section of the track is. Looks very flat, and a big sideways moment from Billy Octane. This could be what Jordan Daly needs. Closed up the gap right away into the Hyundai curve, but nothing to be had around the outside. There's no grip there. It's just pure marbles, and I think Billy has done just enough to hold on to that, but fantastic save from the Porsche driver ahead, the number 3 car.
Porsche and the Vidal chicane, name a more iconic duo. Top 10 anime betrayals, all of that was almost what that was. And I'm telling you folks, a month and a half ago, that would have been certain doom. That would have been reset to the pit lane, but an excellent save by an excellent driver, Billy Octane, able to hang on to that car and wrestle it back into submission just in time to keep Jordan Daly behind them. A real fight here between the two of them. A crack in the armor perhaps from Billy Octane. Jordan Daly, though, unable to capitalize on the quick recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. So very well held from Billy. Did just enough to claw the Porsche back into it, but the rear tyres aren't going to be in a good condition after that. They're going to be slightly too hot, slightly overpressured. So he's going to have to kind of underdrive the car almost to bring it back into a sensible level. But with Jordan Daly breathing down your neck in the baddest motors car, I don't think that is possible at all as we ride on board. Fantastic shot here inside the Ferrari. Of course, we can't quite see the revs, but we can see all the inputs that Jordan Daly's making on the wheel and pedals. Come up the Schumacher S's. It's a very tricky section to follow another car. Of course, dirty air, lots of aero wash in that one. Top of the hill, switching back for the Bilstein curve. You can see just how much Daly is working the wheel, Jesse.
And these are the cars that have new tires.
Exactly. I hate to see what the older tyre cars are looking like as Kibaki dispatches of Reese Wilkinson there. Very sensible driving. Probably saw the Evo 2 charging up behind and thought, you know what, I'm having none of this. On you go.
Oh, it's another bad chicane. It's a really bad chicane.
Very bad. Nearly ended up on the Nordschleifer.
Ride cowboy!
Nearly ended up on the Nordschleifer, Jesse. He was turning left when the track was going right.
Kevin Boss, is there any chance I'd give you a nickel if you could show me that again?
Love to see it. So let's have a look as he comes off the Vidal chicane. He's in the grass. He's bouncing.
Oh my goodness!
Left. He does nearly end up in the Nurburgring slip road, heading off to the Nordschleifer for a VLN 24-hour layout, of course, before turning right. And Daly through on Billy Octane, but great car control there from the Porsche driver.
I knew Billy Octane was a cowboy hat and boots enthusiast, but my goodness, what a wild ride on a bucking Bronco that was for the Estonian driver as he wrestles the Triple R Porsche back into submission for a second lap in a row. He'll probably be slightly frustrated, but also a little wry smile, because that was a heck of a wild ride to take. I enjoyed that, much to his dismay, but my goodness, what a crazy couple laps that was. Calmer Waters just up in front of that group. Christoph Streppen for RCI Esports trying to get back in touch with Leischen, trying to get back in touch with Martin Lawrence. He's catching, certainly, Joshua Leischen right about now. Martin Lawrence, by the way, still making headway into Grant Willemont's lead. It was 5.5 seconds, 5.4 seconds the last time I checked. It is down under 4.5 seconds. He's going to have to get a move on if he wants a legitimate shot. He's not making up enough time, though he has cut more than 2 seconds out of the gap.
Yeah, say 12, just over 12 minutes on the clock, of course, just under 2 minutes a lap. Rough math probably takes out to about 6 laps left to go, so driver's going to have to get a move on, of course, depending where Willemot crosses when the timer hits 0. Depends when, of course, the race will end, essentially. Of course, if it drops at 0, crosses the line, or if it crosses the line, it drops to 0 after. Of course, you get another shot at it, so got to be very careful on what you choose to do, especially if your car's, hemorrhaging tires, you're losing pace. Do you, lift off a little bit, let him eat into the 3 second, 4.5 second gap that he's built up, and just allow the clock to hit 0 and then cross the line to cut the race early, or whether you want to go the whole hog and go another lap, but time will tell on that one. Of course, Grant Willemot, a driver with old tyres on the car. We've got a few drivers in the field on new tyres, and just give you a quick rundown of who they are. Of course, we've got Simon Kubaki in the 966. He's your first driver on fresher tyres. You then got Jordan Daly, Billy Octane just behind on fresher tyres. You've got Chris van der Linde, Ted Edwards, and Kwiatkowski and Ricciardo at the back of the field on fresh tyres. So let's see what the difference is, because 1.9, we've not really seen too many kind of mixed strategies, Jesse. We saw it a lot in 1.8, where some drivers did gamble with old tyres and made it work. 1.8 tyres didn't fall off a cliff as severely, let's just say, towards the end of the stints, although in 1.9 I'm yet to see a race like it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially with how hot today's race was. So many cars did not take tires, and I think those that did take tires, I think they learned a little something here. In the hot temp, you can get away with it. It is miserable, I can almost guarantee you. Willemot, Lawrence, Leischen, and them, they're not really having too much fun on those tires. They've probably been babying them since the very start. The cars that did take tires have either had some sort of calamity befall them, or they were absolutely caning it around this joint, as they have been after they even changed them. So one way or another, I think everybody learned a lesson, and I learned a lesson here today. Not taking tires might be the way to go, at least in the dry. I will maintain, 1 week ago at Zandvoort, taking tires in the wet was absolutely the only call to make. Today, though, the opposite. Not taking. I think that sets the precedent for the future. One car is off. I don't know which one that was. It was that Ricciardo, or was that van der Linde? I believe that was van der Linde.
Yeah, van der Linde at the moment, maybe in the Vidal chicane, the number 527, of course, on a bit of a comeback drive after the lap 1 calamity in the Mercedes arena. Not sure what happened there. See if we can get a replay at all, but not too sure on that one. It's a bit far back, maybe, to recall up. Although what isn't too far, Jesse Lee, this weekend, the big one, the double header on Saturday and Sunday, when we of course allow the 6-hour series competitors back onto the track for their final round at Paul Ricard. Of course, we run a free split and an esports split, as we see Jordan Daly dispatching of Reese Wilkinson up the inside of the Dunlop curve, heading up to the Schumacher S's now, can set himself on the back of Kubaki, and he has a fight he wants to settle, and Jordan Daly's going to be on an absolute charge to try and catch that Audi, although both cars on fresh tyres, so not sure what can be had there. But of course, the esports split, we run a free-to-play split, essentially, and a paid split, where drivers are competing for a slice of an 11,000 euro prize pool, plus bonus money put on by our sponsors, of course, AK Esports Team of the Race Award and the Go Setups Pole Position Award. And looking to the free split, we've got Orion Race Team leading split 1, Flying Hellfish lead split 2, sorry, put my teeth back in, and SRT lead split 3. And some small points margins in the free split. It's all to play for, but of course on Sunday we allow the esports teams to take to the track. Of course, you can catch all that action on RCI TV, hopefully on Sunday on both Twitch and YouTube, where you can join myself and Kevin Galvin for the opening split when that kicks off, of course, with the halfway mark where we change to Tim Peck and a host of talent along the way in various RCI talent broadcasters. And we've got the once again the Veloce 992 took the Team of the Race Award last time out, earning themselves yet another bonus 100 euros to the prize pool. So I think they're up to about 400 euros on that one so far. Veloce 912 on the other hand took honours at Barcelona for a race win, and Williams Esports Razor with a lead of 189 points to their name. They got Team 1 FF hot on their heels with some strong finishes behind them on 136. And I've been kind of camping a few Discord channels, should we say, Jesse Lee. And the R8 Evo 2 is not in the good books of some of the Williams drivers at the moment. So they're going to have to suck it up on Sunday and see if they can just do a little bit of damage limitation. Of course, Paul Ricard played host to the RL SRO championship just the other night as well. So a few drivers with, again, some more insights into how the race may turn out. But 6 hours, Jesse Lee, on Sunday. Anything can happen in that 6 hours.
Well, you forgot the best part. The part is, no matter what half of the race you're in, and whether you're in the John Dalton half of the race or the Tim Peck half of the race, you get a little Jesse Lee in there as well. So, I know some of you got to get your fix. I understand. You will get that throughout the race. But it's going to be an interesting final round as well. We've seen some tempers flare in that series. There's been a lot of really good racing. What started out a one-horse show has turned into anybody's game, especially after 1.9 update came out. It changed everything that all the teams thought they knew, sent them scrambling, and we've had some very fantastic races, some close races settled in the final moments as well. Just going back before we end today's broadcast, remember the accident back on lap 18 between the 966 and the 23? What was that? That was Van Sand and not Kwiatkowski. I keep saying that. That was Kubacki. That's right. I just want to point this out for the benefit of myself. The stewards have, this is the incident here. The stewards have decided no further action. Car number 23 does not leave enough space for car 966, causing contact, which, by the way, was exactly what I said. Take that, girlfriend and dad. I can be right.
Okay, I think Jesse Lee's got a point to prove here, and a point proven, Jesse Lee, on that one. You should almost be a steward. Big wiggle from Billy Octane, though, in the Schumacher S's. I was talking about it just a couple of laps ago, Jesse Lee. Dirty aero from the car ahead, and that kind of looked like exactly what happened there to poor Billy Octane in the Triple R number 3 Porsche. Turned in, kind of didn't have the grip he expected, and before he knew it, he was digging himself off the corner, as you Americans say.
No, that's not how we use that phrase. But moving on, Christoph, I could tell there was a question mark on the end of that statement. I'm sorry. The last 5 minutes, I've just been picturing you as 75 with your dentures out, and my goodness, I can't wait for you to be 75. You know who's not driving 75? Christoph Verstappen. They have caught up to the back of Lation. Keep in mind, doesn't give you more championship points, but just in case something were to happen to Willemot or Lawrence in front, it gives you a little bit more space to play with, especially if you are quicker. Lation probably won't fight too hard if Verstappen gets in there. And of course, Verstappen wants to get through because Kubacki is coming on those quicker tires, those newer tires. And if Verstappen does get hung up here behind Lation, that's going to do nothing but help the 966.
want to touch back on Mia's 75. That's in a whopping 45 years' time. And I wonder what sim racing will be like in 45 years' time, Jesse Lee.
We're gonna do it, and I'm just gonna call my shot right now live. In 45 years' time, sim racing is going to be done in a private room where the walls are all screens. You're gonna have haptic sim rigs, all right, haptic gloves and vest and everything. All right, the hardware is going to be somewhat similar, obviously, to what we have now, but very lightweight in comparison to what we have now. That's what sim racing is going to be like. It's going to be done in a cube-style room, lightweight sim rig, haptic feedback everywhere. It's going to be a great experience.
Exclamation mark, remind me 45 years. I want to look back on this and see what's happened.
If I'm alive in 45 years, God willing, let me know how it turns out.
I'll see you. I'll see you there. We'll see what happens. As we see a little bit of a wiggle there coming through the Vidal chicane from these guys, Verstappen and Lation on your screens. Of course, this is a silver in finger quotation marks driver ahead of a pro driver, and once again we see the silver driver not wanting to give up and wondering if Verstappen can use the extra power that the Bentley did get in the BOP just yesterday. Up the inside he goes. Can he get the barge stopped for the apex? He does. Just about runs out to the left into the AMG arena. They go and move signs filled and delivered. Wilkinson, no answer to that one. Relation, sorry, not Wilkinson.
Technically speaking, a barge is a type of boat, and that is the Boatley getting it done once again. Back up to P3. That will demote Lation down one spot. They will probably not care too much about the overall podium. Doesn't pay more points. Doesn't really matter to them. Point of pride, maybe, but beyond that, Lation's looking to carve out a decent lead for the final round of this championship when we head to Valencia in 1 week's time. The final round of this championship, the decider for both the pro and the silver title, 1 week's time, the newest track in ACC here on the Friday GT Sprint Challenge, Valencia. What better place to decide it all?
And look who's caught to the back of this. It's Kubaki in the 966, latching onto the back of Lation already, and Verstappen is just up the road, so he's going to want to try and dispatch of Lation quickly, but he runs into the back of him, stops dead in the corner to say, I'm very probably sorry, have your gap back. I didn't mean to do that at all. I just misjudged where you were braking, of course, with the different machinery, of course, the R8 Evo 2 and the 296, two very different cars, two very different drivers in two very different classes, and a little bit of understeer, I think, from Kubaki through the Advan Bogan up to the Vidal chicane. He goes. He's going to be kicking himself probably for that one, because he's just lost buckets of time to the back of Lation, which in turn has lost him time to Verstappen, who could have had some more championship points off him. Although Kubaki, this is of course his first scoring round, isn't it, Jesse Lee? He's not actually scored any points.
Yeah, something's happened to the Billy Octane Porsche. That car has retired from the race. Don't know exactly what happened, other than the couple of times they very nearly ended their race early accidentally coming through the Vidal chicane. Don't know if that's happened again or what's going on in that car, but they have retired that Porsche as we enter the final moments of this race. John Dalton, what can you say about Grant Willemot? Came out here, he was quickest in practice, he was quickest in qualifying, he never surrendered the lead. He's been the quickest in the race. Maximum points day, and he is going to go to Valencia next week with a shot to win this championship.
Yeah, absolutely stellar drive. You know, into turn one, 3 wide, 2 deep in the pack, and he managed to draw it up just in time. And then since then, he's kind of escaped all of the rubbish that's happened behind. He's kept it on the straight and narrow. You know, he's had a really, really focused drive tonight here at the Nurburgring, and a flash of the lights for the cameras. I'm not sure he's got any cars.
Does he know we're looking at him? Is that what that is?
Is he doing a Jordan Daly where he's watching the stream as he drives?
Yeah, if it weren't illegal, Jordan Daly would be typing in the chat. Grant Willemot coming down to the front stretch. He's going to collect the flag here and win his first race of the season, and it's a championship reaffirming one as he takes it here. Willemot, your winner. Martin Lawrence comes home, a strong defensive second place, and somehow, some way, the boat, Christoph, chance of a championship shot.
absolutely. So stellar drive from, everybody in the field today. It's been a bit of a chaotic one considering the lower numbers that we have here on Friday. Joshua Lation comes across the line to take silver honors, and Kubaki just behind him as well. Jordan Daly, what could have been, of course, with the tyre strategy, he's probably going to be kicking himself that he didn't risk it and take the same set for the second stint. Reese Wilkinson comes through in P2 of silver, and once again, it's a Welsh lockout, Ryan. Not Ryan, sorry, Jesse.
I am actually offended. First of all, John Dalton. No, John, we're going to talk about it. Who's Ryan?
Ryan Mawson, of course.
Oh, okay.
That's who I had in my head. Or Ryan Gill, either of the RCI staff members. As I looked at the name Ryan, the number 66 comes across the line to take the bottom step of the silver podium in P3. Chris van der Linde managed to hold on, beat Ted Edwards in that one as well. Kwiatkowski just behind in P10, and Ricciardo, your last car to come across the line in the number 137 Scuderia Ferrari. Durete already finished just ahead, of course, in the Lamborghini after suffering a drive-through, possibly for track limits. We didn't have any kind of issues that we knew about on our stewards report. And here is your final results board here. Grant Willamot, of course, taking honours, 3.4 seconds to the good, of Martin Lawrence, joint with his drop round finish of P2 in Zandvoort last time out. Christopher Strapen takes your bottom step of the pro podium before we see our first silver car, of course, Joshua Lation. Kubaki, just want to touch on, he is the first driver with new set of boots to his name, shall we say, on the field. So the new tyre strat, of course, not working out too well there for him. Jordan Daly, again, equally with a new set of tyres as well on that one. And I believe just joining us, Jesse Lee, is our race winner today, Grant Willamot. Welcome.
Hello.
Say, absolutely stellar drive from yourself today. Of course, you went down into turn one. It was 3 wide, 2 deep. It looked pretty chaotic from up here in the booth, but you managed to remain focused, stand on the anchors, get it around turn one, and then you just kind of drove off into the distance from where we were looking. Of course, it's probably a very different story to what you would tell from the cockpit.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple, to be honest. I don't really know what happened at turn one. I haven't had a chance to see the replay. I think all three of us went a little bit too deep. I just know I got hit a tiny bit from behind. But yeah, I don't know what happened in those first few laps. I couldn't get close to the times I was doing in practice. I was absolutely miles off, 5, 6, 7 tenths. But I just tried to stay in the lead, keep my head down. Luckily, I think the Ferrari and the Audi both made some mistakes early on, which sort of meant I could drive without looking in my mirrors for a few laps.
It's always very tricky when you have that car behind you in your mirrors. You almost stare at the mirror trying to anticipate what they're going to do in the next corner, and then in turn it kind of affects your very own pace as well. And just want to touch on, of course, a very hot race here tonight, 45 degrees on the track. It's probably one of the hottest races I've casted in ACC, I would say. Tyre strategy today, 1.9 being the talking point on everybody's lips still, just a few weeks down the line. How different is it to 1.8? I know 1.8 used to tend to stay on the same set of tires. They used to last a little bit, but 1.9 complete alien to me on a 1 hour race.
Yeah, I think I mean, in these races, for me it's never really an option to change tires. That's not something I'd ever consider, even with the extreme temperatures and the 1.9 update. They weren't. It was, yeah. I mean, my rear tires are on about 98, 99 degrees for most of the lap. I had to turn the traction control up a little bit because I was sliding so much. It makes you a little bit slower, but I think it was a reasonable trade-off to save the tires a tiny little bit towards the end. Yeah, look, even like I said, even with the update, changing tires in these sort of races is never really an option. I think a couple of people have done it there, and I don't know where they finished, but you just remove yourself from the race, you remove yourself from the train, and you end up, well, it is effectively 27, 28 seconds behind where you should be, and you're never ever going to make that up in 30 minutes, no matter what the track or what the temperatures are.
Grant, yeah, I've got to ask, you finished third in the first 3 rounds of this championship. Obviously, you had your sign out, but you finished on the podium every time you were here in the Lamborghini, and now you finally break through and win it, and you go into Valencia with a shot to win that championship in that race. Have you done any practice at Valencia? What do you expect?
Um, considering it's the new track, I don't even know if I've done 10 laps on it yet. So yeah, that'll be something I'll have to learn towards the end of next week or throughout next week. Yeah, I think Martin will probably go on to win the title. But yeah, it's nice. It's nice to be in with the show. It's nice to beat him because I always think that I sort of roughly know where my level is on ACC, and I think he's probably just one tier above where I am. So it's nice to sort of beat him in a race. He probably had like 40 seconds of damage or something like that, which is why I was able to do it. But yeah, we'll see what happens next week. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not mad about Nurburgring, which is why it's probably one of my least favorite tracks. I've never been fastest, so today was a little bit of a surprise. But yeah, maybe that gives some optimism for next week.
Well, Grant, anyone you want to shout out, give thanks to?
Well, I definitely don't want to give any thanks to my two teammates for this 6-hour RCI race tomorrow because, well, one of them's okay, but the other one is drinking, and I wanted like 200 laps. I wanted like 200 laps pumped out this evening, and he's doing other things, so that's not ideal. But we'll still be trying to win it, even with one of our drivers severely hungover.
Well, good luck with that effort. Of course, he's talking about the community 6-hour series on Saturday. Grant, congratulations on winning this round of the GT Sprint Challenge here at the Nurburgring, and good luck next week. Congrats.
Thank you. Bye.
You know, most people, John Dalton, when they come on this, they pump their teammates up. Grant parked a bus on them on this occasion. Well, we talked to the pro champion of the race. Let's talk to the winner in the silver class, Josh Lation. Josh, congratulations on another impressive win.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. No, that was like one of the hardest races on tires for me. From, as you've probably seen, I was holding Verstappen off quite well for probably about 52 minutes of the race. And then, yeah, the last 6 or 7 minutes, it was just, I had nothing left. Literally had nothing at all. But yeah, we got through it. I needed to get into this race, pole position and a race win, just to give me that bit of breathing room going into the last round of Wilkinson, so who's also done a great job today. So.
Yeah, Wilkinson, of course, coming home in P2. That keeps the pressure on just a little bit going into the final round. I've got to ask, Josh, what fueled that decision to not take tires?
To be honest with you, it's kind of our go-to in the 1-hour sprints. Today, I think the Audi took tires potentially. You know, it wasn't the fastest strategy, but I don't know. I just feel like you just got to go with it and just hang on until the end. Unfortunately, if it was a 52-minute race, we would have had P3 overall because we were hanging on quite a while, and then it just the cliff came, and yeah, I well and truly fell off it. So yeah, I just don't think with my pace I would have been fast enough to potentially, you know, even get back into the lead of the silver split. You know, it was just a case of hanging on and being a little bit quicker than Wilkinson throughout the race. Not much, you know, we were 2-3 tenths a lap, if that, and just managed to hold on.
Well, I asked Grant, so I'm going to ask you as well. Okay. Valencia, the final round of the championship. Have you done much testing there? What can you expect going into the final round with a championship to defend?
I haven't done a great amount of practice on there. I joined the RCI launch party when obviously when it came out originally. I did a 2.4 hour endurance in a GT4 car there only last week. So hopefully, you know, that will help me with the GT3. If anything, it should maybe be a little bit easier in a GT3, a little bit more aero, but then that's not always the case. But yeah, I'm pretty confident going into that one. I did the hard work today. I know I don't need to win next week. I just need to come, you know, 1 or 2 positions behind Wilkinson, but you know me, I'll be going out there, pole position and a race win again, hopefully. And then moving up to pro class, you know, next season. So I'm happy with the P4 overall. Bit gutted I lost out to Verstappen at the end, but he's just relentless. He just doesn't, you know, he doesn't make mistakes, and that pace was so consistent, and he got me in the end.
Well, what a race it was. Another victory in the books, and if my math is correct, that's 3 on the season for Josh Lation. Congratulations again on winning here at the Nurburgring.
Thank you very much. Thanks for doing the casting as always. I'll be sure to give it a watch back.
Anybody you want to shout out before you leave?
Always. I know I got a couple people watching my stream. I'm going to shout out my teammates, Wilkinson and Daniels. They've done a fantastic job this season. You know, as you've heard it before, we're working hard, and yeah, it's paying off. You know, hopefully me and Wilkinson will move up to pro next season. I think Daniels wants another season in the silver and hopefully try and get the title there as well. So yeah, big shout out to the team, and looking forward to the final round next week. And you'll also see us in the 4-hour Silverstone as well. So be cool to see us again in an endurance race for our first time. So.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, your winner in the silver class, Josh Lation. Congrats. Well, that just about does it for us on RCI Fridays. Once again, we thank you for dealing with our technical difficulties today, and we assure you those will be taken care of in 24 hours' time, just in time for Night Owl, the way it's meant to be. Saturday night racing, you are not going to want to miss it. Last week was absolutely crazy at a wet Valencia, cars going off left, right, and center. Normal service probably resumed over this weekend. And of course, Sunday, the finale of the RCI 6-hour esports challenge. Some team is going to take home the lion's share of €11,000 prize pool, and other teams fighting over other prizes. John Dalton told you earlier on that the Veloce team, one of the Veloce teams, has won every single team of the race award. They've netted 400 additional euros to whatever prize pool they end up with. That will be live right here on RCI TV, both on YouTube and on Twitch Sunday Night Out this Saturday before that, of course. And again, sign up for all of the championships that haven't yet started. And don't worry, if you haven't joined before a championship has started, you can sign up mid-season for any championship ongoing, including this one. You could be on the grid of Friday GT Challenge next week for the finale. BMW Academy starting up on Monday as well. I don't know if my broadcast partner, John Dalton, is still with me. John, are you alive?
I'm still here, just letting you do your thing, Jesse Lee. Of course, it's been a fantastic evening of racing here at RCI TV, as always. And as Jesse says, catch us again on Sunday for the exciting esports series, and of course Saturday night as well for the regular now slot, as Jesse Lee conveniently said just now. And it's been great as always, Jesse Lee, to stand in. Of course, Friday isn't my usual gig, so I'd like to thank everybody for having me here. And if you do want to catch me on the regular, normally it is a Monday, although I think due to scheduling, the BMW Academy shall not be streamed, although I will be streaming it hopefully over on my Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/Oreos with a H on the end. Go follow me and get a notification when I go live. But hopefully we should be live. And Kevin Boss wanted me to promote himself as well. The man behind the cameras, of course, twitch.tv/CrashNeck. That's all one word. Crash is in what we have in racing, and neck as in the bit below your head, just in case you're wondering how to spell that one.
Oh dear. I agree with that. Crash neck and Oreo with an SH on the end. Oreo, yeah, with an SH on the end. Follow those fantastic people. I'm going to be watching the 6-hour community races tomorrow. You can too. And follow some fantastic people while you're at it. Well, folks, that's just going to about do it for us here on RCI Fridays. Valencia, the championship deciding round with both the Pro and the Silver championships hanging in the balance. Who's going to be crowned champion and who is going to see opportunity pass them up? One final thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. Like, subscribe, hit all the things, hit all the buttons, even the downvote one, on your way out tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night for Night Owl, and until then, have a good night.